Hello, everybody. So we're live and making sure my phone's on Do Not Disturb. So, welcome my guest, Michelle Froedge, the Rockstar Coach. Michelle is
Hello.
a intuitive coach, and she's an amazing friend, and she guides women on how to be the best versions of themselves. And she is my guest here every month, the first Tuesday of the month. And I'm so grateful to have you here to talk about a very important topic, living without attachment.
Yes, it's a very important topic for
Well,
all of us, I'm
well,
sure.
for all of us, and I think it's not just, I'm gonna just kind of segment this out for people, and then we'll start talking. But basically, when I think about living without attachment, we can look at that in relationship to ourselves, in relationship to other people, in relationship to our projects, our personal, our business life. And where would you like to get started in terms of which area or what's most important to you? Um, um, well, why don't we start with this? How do you define attachment, and how does it show up in our daily lives? Let's go with that.
Yeah. Um, so I feel like attachment is having certain expectations. I
Mhm.
mean, there's a lot of different ways we can define it. That is one, right? That we can have different expectations,
Mhm.
whether it's for an outcome, for a behavior, for, you know, a, um, a particular, I guess, situation to be solved or not solved or whatever that may be. I guess that kind of goes in with outcome. But then there's also when when we are attached to something, it's like we're holding on really tightly. It's a control thing. So we're really trying to control something, and most oftentimes it's because of fear. And so, how does that show up in our daily lives? Well, a parent trying to control an adult child or a
Big time.
teenager, even, right? A
Mhm.
teenager. So, it could be that they're not, the teenager or the adult child is not communicating with the parent in a way or as often as the parent would like. Okay. There are ways to convey that, to convey your need or your desire without being attached, without trying to control. A lot
Yeah,
of
being
times that,
attached to the outcome. Is that what you mean? So,
yeah, and it can a
because
lot of
what
times show
happens
up.
when we're attached to the outcome? What
Well, I
happens?
was just going to
How does
say,
that energy shift when we're attached to the outcome?
I was just going to say it shows up a lot of times in that regard and in relationship as passive aggressiveness. Um, And so the shift is, and this is kind of maybe jumping into how do we not, right?
Mhm.
But
Keep
part of
talking.
that,
The girls are talking, so I'm gonna.
part of that is allowing others to be themselves, to to um not be held up to expectations that either A, they're not aware of,
Mhm.
B, they don't wish to live up to because they
Right.
haven't agreed to them, right? Or C, they're not capable of. And so I think we can get tangled in those, and that starts with an expectation, then it turns into a control, possibly a passive aggressive behavior. And then, really, if we're on the end of the one that feels like their expectation isn't being met, then there's disappointment, right? And so if we can not be attached and we can let others be who they are and have open communication, then we can not be attached and not be disappointed. It's easier said than done, though.
Yeah, I mean, because there's healthy attachment and unhealthy attachment. How would you define those? Or do you feel that there is a healthy and unhealthy attachment?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I think when people talk about being detached,
Mhm.
oftentimes they kind of go to an extreme and they say, okay, well, I just don't care. I'm just throwing my hands up. I don't care.
Like
It's like,
hot and cold, right?
exactly.
Right.
And
Okay.
it's not that. It's not that. You can care about someone, you can care about a relationship, you can care about an outcome
Hmm.
without trying to control it or being completely disappointed if it doesn't happen the way that you would like it to. So you can care about it and be even invested in it, right? We can put our time, energy, money, like for instance in a business, right? We
Hmm.
we have businesses and we can put our time and energy and effort and money, blood, sweat, and tears, as they say, into it, and we can also be detached to where if spirit, universe, God says, okay, it's time to pivot, that we don't go, no, and act like a 2 year old because we thought we were doing this and spirit says, okay, now it's time to do this.
Well, and let me give a really good example of that healthy detachment, right? So, I mean, how many times have I told you the book is going live today?
Oh,
Since
I know,
like the
I
summer,
know.
right? I mean,
I know.
and so healthy detachment, right? Oh,
Oh, she's exhibiting some healthy detachment right now. Bye, mom.
don't put your bird body in that. So I've got to show people. She was going to put her bird body in here. I'm like, don't do it.
As
Don't
mom
do
was
it.
drinking water.
It's deep. She won't come out.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So healthy detachment. So look, I thought the book was my book. So I really changed my languaging. It's not my book. It's first of all, it's our book. It's a universe book. It's source's book. It's Jesus. It's not my book. And so when and I realized that I think after the fourth time that it's been published, I'm like WTF. So
Mhm.
when that happened, I was just like, this is not my book. This is really not mine. I'm simply the conduit to providing information, which is what I do for a living anyway. I'm a conduit to his word. And, I channeled the book. Most of the book is a channel. And even the parts, even though some of it, there are a lot of it that's from what my personal life, what I chose to share in that book was through his word, what he wanted shared. If he didn't approve the sentence, it didn't go in, you know. And so the other day it uploaded in a way I would say similar to my upbringing, dysfunctional. And I just said, "Okay, God, you want the book uploaded? You send me who you want to have the book uploaded to. Because this is obviously not my book. You choose a day and we'll just do it your way." And it finally went up this morning again. And I did the preview. It's perfect.
Yay.
And that's the ebook. And then we'll do the print in another day or so, you know. But
Beautiful.
okay, so I want to tell you that people who are trying to listen online can't really, they're not used to your beautiful voice. So can you nudge me in another way? Thank you. So that we can have our listeners still join the show. Oh, she says Spirit is here. Who's here? It's my dad. My dad is here. Does my dad really need to be here? He needs to be here right now. Okay. So what my dad is saying is that uh, living without attachment is somewhat aligned with resilience, right? It's about having a stick to itness. So she does this every time there's a spirit in the house. Sorry. It's having a stick to itness. So you have to be resilient and keep walking the path, not having an expectation on the outcome, rather understanding that there's a life lesson in the experience that you're supposed to receive. Okay, it's a little loud. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna take you guys out. Michelle, why don't you tell? Come on, girly girl. I'm gonna take them out, and I'm gonna let you, Michelle, talk about resilience. Okay. Whoop 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 whoop. That's
All right, I'll talk
go.
about resilience. Okay.
Resilience and living without attachment. Go for it.
Yes. Okay. Well, like Jodi was saying, hello, Chris, bird ladies. um, as Jodi was saying, when we get those lessons or when we have moments of wanting to control something or feeling as though we are attached, whether it's to an outcome, to a person, a relationship, an amount of money, a business, whatever that may be, if something doesn't come through the way that we would like it to or the way that we envision it, there's always a lesson in there. And even if it does happen the way that we want it to, there's a lesson there. But so often we get our sights set on that one thing, that outcome that we want, whether it's in business, whether it's a project, whether it is a relationship, whatever. We get our sights set on that, and we have a very hard time letting go. And if we can surrender, and this has been a theme for about 2 years in my life, maybe more, but if we can learn to surrender and look for the lesson, that a lot of times is really the purpose of the whole experience. It's not a lot of times in the end result. It's most often in the journey, in the process, because that's where we learn and grow. And then when we learn to let go, to surrender and trust, then those lessons they are not as difficult. And then we understand how being detached is actually the easier way to live. Because when we're doing this, it stresses us out, it creates anxiety, it creates disappointment, we're sad, we're upset, all of the things, right? If it doesn't go exactly the way that we planned. So,
or that you think somebody else is supposed to do it.
That. Pardon?
Or if you think someone else is supposed to do it a certain way. I was telling Chris the other day, or maybe it was Raj, I don't remember, but so I was always triggered going to the grocery store when I would see people buying toxic food, right? Now, we all know that 90% of the food in the grocery store is toxic. So it's like, bing, 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 bing.
Yeah.
And so once I released my triggers to that and realized it's not my responsibility, because a part of this is shifting your mindset, right? What's your responsibility? Well, it's not my responsibility to save everybody. It's everyone's responsibility to save themselves.
Yes.
And that's when in my opinion, when we start living without attachment, people have to learn their lessons. Can you imagine how many people were triggered that I was taking 50 drugs at the same time?
I'm sure. Yeah.
Right. Nobody raised a hand and said anything about that. And it kind of goes to that theme that we've been hearing, right? Let them. And one of the things that I think this also ties into is when we let them and when we step back and when we choose to be the observer, we allow them to grow and have their own lessons. If we're constantly trying to save somebody from themselves, We rob them of growing. You agree?
Absolutely. I just posted something in my women's group this morning that said almost that verbatim.
Oh, I didn't
Yes.
even get on Facebook this morning. I swear I didn't steal it.
Yep. No, yeah. Almost verbatim.
Mhm.
Because yes, it as an empath, and I put this in the post, I sometimes battle with observing or watching other people struggle. If
Mhm.
I, especially if I have a solution, but like you said, it's not my responsibility. And also, I they do have to learn their own lessons. I am stunting their growth if I
Mhm.
help them. I am
Exactly.
keeping them from learning. And unfortunately for them, if I do that and fix it now, even if they want me to, they're going to have to learn that lesson another time, another way.
Isn't that truth, right? Isn't that the truth? So, hmm, I'm sharing I'm sharing the show in a couple different groups. Um, so what role do you feel does mindfulness or spirituality play in releasing attachment?
Well, for me personally, that's huge. Um, that's part of my biggest work is mindset, mindfulness,
Mhm.
meditation. Um, because if I can get my mind right and do just what we just said, right?
Mhm.
Release, control, understand that it's their lesson, um, um, then it all becomes easier to detach.
Mhm.
Um, it does not. It does not solve anything for me, nor does it solve anything for another person.
Mhm.
Um, if I stay attached to an outcome, to whatever that looks like. So, um, if I can continually release, release, and sometimes this has to happen in my mind many times in an hour, not just in a day, right?
That's
Sometimes
funny.
many times in an hour. So, um, it just depends on the day and what I'm looking at, what I'm attached to. But so that mindfulness piece is really important, and I feel like for me, um, when I start my day in a mindful way, whatever
Mhm.
that looks like, there's a lot of different ways. But if I start my day in a mindful way, it goes a long way in helping me stay centered and grounded. And then staying centered and grounded can help me allow, let them, right?
Yeah, that's really been a big lesson. I didn't realize what a control freak I was.
What a what you were?
Control freak.
Control. Yeah.
Anybody else out there a control freak that wants to admit it? you
I
know,
used to
um,
be. Um, I used to be, and I'm a recovering people pleaser. I say recovering because I still fall into that sometimes.
Mhm.
I'm not a control freak anymore, but I used to be very much so.
I've let go a lot of control in a lot of things, but there were still like I found some things that I was doing, and I, what what I believe about that, it's okay to be a recovering control freak too, as long as you're willing to have awareness
Yes.
when you're in that space and go, oops, plot twist.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
let it go. Right?
Yes. Yes. Awareness is huge. That is huge for all sorts of things, right? Control, people pleasing, attachment, right? All of that.
So I think that awareness to me is the root solution
Mm.
to our own personal issues. Would you agree?
I do agree. Yeah.
Mhm.
It has to start there because if we're not aware or willing to see it, then we'll be in denial, and we won't do the things to take the steps to step out of that, to move from forward from that, to learn from it.
Well, what I witnessed, and I would like to share, I'd like you to share what you've witnessed. I used to get kind of triggered by people who were so unaware.
Mm,
And then it finally occurred to me they didn't have the bandwidth to be aware because their brain was on fire. Like they were going at 90 miles an hour trying to please this one, do that, split here, split there. And they couldn't be all things to all people. And that's what they were really trying to do. And as a result, they couldn't be aware of really how they were coming across or what they were doing.
mm.
And so, what have you observed?
Um, Gosh, a lot. I have observed that. Well, I have not been aware of certain personal behaviors until they were exhibited toward me, and then I
Oh,
and then I thought, oh, I don't like this. This doesn't feel good. And the little ping, said, oh, really? You don't like this? Oh, because you do the same thing. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
uncomfortable, right?
Totally uncomfortable. And also for me, immediate shift because I'm like, I do not, do not want to behave like that any
Right.
longer.
So, so I want to give advice to people here who are listening, either now or in the future. If you find yourself unaware or you can't see what people are saying to you, if they're giving you feedback, slow down, pause, listen, go to the mountains, go to the beach, go in the backyard, go sit with God, go sit in nature, and just be by yourself. Uh, it really um, is the key to the next step in your life. I don't care who you are. The next step to where you're going to go in life is your ability to slow down, hear, and be present for him or her, depending on where you stand. You know, I don't really care. So, one of the practices now that I'm healthy enough again, because I was pretty sick for the last year, to allow myself to be more aware of where my transgressions are or my opportunities for growth was to go. I'm going for walks. I walk at least 2 miles a day now, and it feels good. I have joy doing it, and a lot of times I take that walk with friends on a phone call. My sauna is there too, right? But the movement, I mean, I'm not quieting my mind, but I'm getting the energy out of my body, so that when I'm not on that phone call, I've exerted energy, gotten rid of that electricity that we all have at some point in time that stops us from being present in the moment. What do you think? What do you like to do?
Yeah, that's a great thing to do. I am kind of a loner of sorts myself because I am an introvert. Most people don't believe that, but it's true. And so I must take time to be alone. Um, and if I don't, I know because I become cranky, irritable, negative, perhaps even. Um, Not, and then there's the physical, right? There's the um the tired or um, like just lethargic.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to recharge myself, and that looks different. It can be exercise, it can be going out um, for a walk myself, that can be sitting in meditation, it can be just going out to maybe window shop somewhere. And yes, I'm around other people, but I don't have to talk. I don't have to have like conversations with people. I can just be in a bubble of sorts. And I especially love days like today when it's here in Georgia. It's beautiful, it's sunny, and the air is warm, and it just feels good after all of the cold that we've had recently. So this is a
Yeah.
perfect time to be outside.
Yeah. I already did my hour walk, and there's really, I know a lot of people like going to the gym, but I was a gym rat growing up. So,
Yeah,
like, I really like to be in the mountains or outside somehow.
yes, I'm with
Um,
you there. I like both,
mhm.
but yeah, I really love being outside when I can.
You know what I would do? Okay, I don't know what we're doing here, but so I went to school, undergrad for a few years at University of Arizona. And it just popped into my head that, I should have an outdoor gym, like put my
Mhm.
bench press out there, just, and you can have it in a tent and then just kind of roll back your tent,
Yep.
so it's protected from the elements. Um, because to me, um, there's nothing more important or for me than connecting with nature.
Mhm.
I'm chatting with the squirrels every morning. I'm talking to the birds. There's that crazy lady, talking to the animals again.
Who cares?
Let them,
Yep.
let them. So my neighbor, she owns Trilogy Farm, which is a horse farm, and they also have birds and, you know, uh, cattle and sheep and goats and bunnies, right? And they're the cutest in the world. And we shared a pet, she and I. I called her Joy, and she called her Lila, and she's a deer.
No.
And then I realized that my neighbor won the deer because the deer was allowed to come into her house and sleep on the couch.
Oh yeah, she wins. She totally
Yeah.
wins.
She goes, "Oh no, she's house trained." I'm like,
Oh
"Really?"
my goodness,
Mhm.
amazing.
Mhm. I go, "Really?" And
Mm.
my husband and I did healing on her. She had a broken jaw and it wasn't working. Her tongue was hanging out, and she
Mm.
was at our house, and we did energy healing on her. She can chew. We also used the Rife machine on her for broken bones. So between
Beautiful.
us and that, whatever. But it was really cool. She's a happy, happy deer. She's a little
Mm.
stunted in her growth, but she's the sweetest little shaman deer. I call her. Like she's a shaman.
Yeah,
Hmm.
sweet.
So we're just talking. So let's see. Does anybody have any questions about living without attachment, stories about living without attachment? And I just want to say, if you want to call in, I have my number here posted. I am going to get a call in line. Um, it's through I think it's freeconferencecall.com, and people they're going to show me how to do that. But if you want to call in and you have questions that you want to ask, or you can type your questions. We'd love to hear it, or what your concerns are, or how it shows up for you, like that. And and then, of course, Chris was saying some people meditate best when they're in motion, walking meditation. See, I always thought that was kind of a crazy thing. We have a joint friend, Chris, who does that, and I'm just like, I don't know how you do that. Can you meditate while you walk?
Um, I mean, I guess yes. I don't necessarily call it meditation, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of I mean, I do commune. So, yeah, I guess so. When I'm walking in nature, um um I I do have a lot of conversations or communications. And so, yeah, I guess that would be meditation of sorts.
Sure, it's a subset or variation of it. One of the things I think
Yeah.
that we might want to talk about is how does living without attachment lead to more joy and abundance? I'm all about living with joy. What does that look like for you? I know I have a couple stories around it, so go for it.
Well, I mean, quite basically, it's a matter of releasing our disappointments and our fears.
Hmm.
When we are not attached to an outcome, to a person, whatever that looks like for you, then we can live in peace. We don't have to worry about what somebody else is doing or not doing, or how it looks on the outside. Or, because a lot of times we may have a certain expectation or attachment to how much money we should be making or what kind of car we should be driving, blah, 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 right? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if we um, if we do have that attachment, then we could be, if we're not living up to that, we could be continually disappointed and irritated, frustrated. We could be um, constantly kind of looking over our shoulder, wondering what people are thinking of us. Oh, well, we're not, I don't have that car, or I don't have that purse, or whatever that is. And it's like, we sure do put a lot of stress on ourselves if we feel like we have to live up to certain things. So if we can release that attachment of feeling like we have to live up to certain things, or other people needing to live up to certain things, then wow, we can just we can give ourselves freedom. That's where the joy comes in,
Yeah,
because
and
we
I
can be
notice
in
where I do that all the time. Like I have this thing where um so when someone's on the way over to my home, right? Whether it's a family member, my husband, a friend, there's something that clicks in my brain that says now the house needs to be perfect. That's exhausting, and it's a form of people
yes,
pleasing because
yes,
it's not also not authentic, right? Because no one lives in perfection. Like your home's never perfect. Sorry, anybody
right,
who's watching this, right? And so we want to
right.
look at where are we where do we have these program belief systems which are self-imposed expectations leading us to disappointment, and then where can we shift that into joy, right? And I'm just going to an example, again going back to the book, how do we I actually went and hired an astrologer to get me a launch date because I was just like, I don't get it anymore, right? And she didn't even get it right either. It was the universe saying, no one's really running the show but me. And so now the book is finally launched. Thank Jesus, because he's the only one in charge right now. Right. And then the question is, which I fully believe this, by him running the show and him implementing divine timing and me acquiescing to divine timing, I believe the outcome will be a lot more joyful. And really, I'm hearing a lot more abundant. Like to pause
Mhm.
and not rush into, there were things that needed to be done. So, Chris
Well,
has,
and that just makes me think we never know what's going on behind the scenes. Sometimes, I've seen something online that says something like, you didn't hear conversations that were being had behind your back. You didn't see, you didn't know the things that were going on. And it wasn't God or the universe not giving you what you wanted. It was actually all for your protection because you didn't know what
So
was going
you're
on behind the scene.
150% correct. And then Chris is saying, what if by having that attachment, we're actually pushing people away or situations that would be of greater benefit, of more love and joy? We often lack that 360-degree view. And I couldn't agree more.
Amen, Chris.
Mhm.
Correct. I
She's such a
completely
wise,
agree. Yes,
she's so wise.
absolutely.
Um, yeah, because we only have the equation, even though like you and I access the subconscious mind, right? Even though we access the Christ consciousness, we have blind spots. So we have to let it go.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, definitely.
Um,
And sometimes it's because those things, those answers to the questions that are being asked, maybe the person that's asking them is not actually ready for that answer. It might not be the right time. I
mhm.
often tell people when I do readings that nothing will come through that your soul is not ready for. Because I've had people in the past, afraid that I'm going to see their death or something, and I'm like, no, I've never had it happen yet because really most people do not want to know that, really. So our
Right.
soul will only allow us to know what we are ready for in that moment. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and Naima saying, yes, I agree. When things don't happen the way we want, it's a sign that something or someone needs to be changed before things should proceed. I've learned that lesson a lot. So I'm going to give you guys an example. Why am I showing you this water bottle? Right? Kind of fancy.
It's really cool looking.
Yeah, so watch what happens. So I'm taking
Ooh.
my filtered water and I'm converting it into hydrogen water, which is really amazing for your intestinal tract, which should make hydrogen on its own, but because of our environment, it doesn't. Now, how does this relate to what Naima is saying? So I'm ready to publish the book last year, right? And God's like, yeah, I don't think so. I don't have a plan for you. And I'm like, it's publishing, it's publishing. Nee. So December 15th, I fly out to Vegas to share with Dr. Patrick Porter, who's a neuroscientist and the CEO of BrainTap, about this concept of walk-ins and walkouts and all these other things. And because he's endorsing the book, he's a contributing author. I'm like, you might want to know what I'm telling the world, about how we're reframing mental health, right? And while I'm there, of course, it's the A4M conference, and we're redefining medicine for the world. And so I came across these guys. They have water. Now, this is the to-go bottle, but they also have it for, the bath, the home, the faucet and stuff like that. But bigger and better. And the reason the book wasn't allowed to be published is they wanted different information about water in there. They wanted the world to understand the importance of hydrogen water and how it allows our body to self-heal. It's unrecognizable, especially when you pair it with red light therapy, which there's like 1,300 studies on this one website. And we're really not here to talk about this today. But what I want to say is, had I pushed it through and published the book, I really, earlier, one, this water helps people with their emotions, things like bipolar, anxiety, schizophrenia, Alzheimer, dementia, prostate issues like the big C word. And so my book is about emotional healing and toxic free living. If we didn't have this key ingredient, it would have been a half book. We would have been missing a big part of the equation. And so, had I pushed my agenda versus God's agenda, which I was doing, I say that like I wasn't, but I was. We'll just pretend it'll be our little secret, everybody. We don't tell anybody.
Your secret's safe with me.
Mm-hmm. Right?
I don't know about all these other people, but
Right. And so um, the thing is, with everybody who's in the book, we are reframing mental health for the world. And I wouldn't have suggested that um, as a tagline had I not waited and experienced what God had intended for me. So the question that we have to ask ourselves also then is, what are we sacrificing to race to the finish line? If we're in a hurry to race to the finish line, which I was, I will tell you now, I wanted to publish the book last March. I think I'm funny. I really do. And I don't mean like I should be a comedian on stage. I think it's just hilarious that, I'm like, God, he just gives me lesson after lesson, right?
Mhm.
But what are we sacrificing? What are we giving up? And who are we sacrificing by racing to the finish line and being attached to the outcome, what we think should be the outcome, instead of waiting to hear his word, which I did not, I will tell you now. And good thing he's stronger than me. He didn't let the book get published. Good thing.
And sometimes the universe will allow us to push through, and it will allow us to do things that maybe isn't perfect timing, but it's for a reason, it's for a lesson, right? And so because we did that, then we have other lessons to learn, instead of just letting go and letting it happen as it is best, um, and not having those lessons to learn, because the lesson is letting go, right? Releasing attachment.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, that's hard. Boy, that's hard when we have our own idea of what best is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's for ourselves or someone else.
Well, and the thing is, there's a lot of times that uh, God has let me, step in the muck, mud on the face, whatever. But this was not an option. And I did still have mud on the face because I'm like, oh, it's launching. And they're like, no, 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 no.
Fight.
Just joking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what else you got for me on living without attachment, Michelle? What else do we need
Well,
to share to support our listeners?
um, I'm just thinking of kind of the opposite, when has, and I'll ask you, Jodi, when
Uh-oh.
has living without attachment, so releasing that attachment, when has that, when have you done that and it's
Mhm.
actually worked out in such a way that had you been attached, it would have been far different?
So, great question. I'm going to tell you, I've had both examples. So, a couple of years ago, when I really started practicing this, I had an assistant, and she's from Africa, South Africa. And I'm finally starting to own the fact that I'm an artist, right? I really like to create beauty in things. And it's not necessarily, it could be graphics, it could be a photography, it could be, I really kind of got it. Like I do things with furniture, and I'm like, oh, okay. And that's why I was so attached to doing things myself and the outcome. And so, because I want it just so, right? Well, last year or 2 years ago, I started working with this assistant, and I thought, let it go. You can't do it all. You don't have the energy to do it all. You got to let it go. And so she gave me something better than what I could have even known was possible in far as my marketing and graphics and social. I mean, she just did a wonderful job. And I got that, and then I started doing it with my graphic designer in Georgia, and I got something better. And so there's a lot of times, um, from that perspective, it's been really wonderful. I've also had where I let it go and I give it off and I get like egg on my face. They haven't done the work, or they upload the wrong book cover, right? Um, which I told you about in our wisdom circle. Oh, goodness gracious. You need to let me know when I forget to put on our banners. Um, so let's
Oh,
just do that.
I don't even think about it
Yeah,
either.
yeah, and people know how to get in touch with us, I think. I mean, I've got my number, you got yours, people can find us. Um,
Yeah.
so the thing is that I've had it happen both ways, where I trusted too much and let go too much, and then also where I let go and I got something that was amazing, you know.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
practiced actually letting go probably back in 1997. Or was it 90? No, it was 1990, 1989. I created a line of greeting cards with a girlfriend of mine. And so we kind of put together what we were looking for. They were male and female nudes. And so we did photographs. And then what we did is we had charcoal renderings made from those photographs that were non exploitational. And they're stunning. I
Mm.
still have them.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And but what I did was we kind of set guidelines for stuff, and then I let it go. Because the last thing you want to do is control an artist.
Yes.
But the problem is now, like I was talking to somebody about helping me with my next book. Yeah, don't freak out. I've got another title. It's called When Past Lives Come Back to Haunt You. Um, I really want to be involved in the creative process. Like I want to share a file. And the person said to me, well, you should just trust me. And I said, well, I hear you. I said, but maybe it's not about trust. Maybe that's your programming. Maybe I get joy out of doing the creation of bringing my artwork in and finding ways to play with it. It's like, cooking in the kitchen, right? And so I think there's can be a fine line of living without attachment to the process, right? And being open to processing things in a way that creates community and allows everybody to have joy in the process. It's not one person controlling. And I think that's one of the biggest things is that if we feel we have to control everybody on our path, then we're going to exchange that for lack of joy. So that's my long-winded answer. Oops.
No, that's wonderful. Yes. Yeah, and it is a fine line. I mean, you know, it especially in business. I mean, this can
Mhm,
be in anything really, but I'm just thinking of business. If it's our business, we do have a vision, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's why we've created the business that we've created.
mhm,
Um, and so, if we have a particular vision
mhm,
and we hire people to do
mhm,
certain things, to play certain roles in our vision, then there's nothing wrong with giving direction and continuing to be involved in the process. And if somebody's not giving you what you envisioned, meaning it's completely off,
mhm,
then that's where you can redirect them or redirect yourself. So there's nothing wrong with having the vision and allowing people to be creative within that vision, because sometimes they are going to give you something much better than you could ever imagine. And then other times they just miss the mark of what you're thinking. And
Oh, I saw
when
that, yeah. I saw
when
both.
it's right, when it's your business, then you do get the final say. As long as we're, being malleable, we're
Mhm,
not, doing this to the people, and we're just saying, okay, I thank you for this. It's not the direction that I'm seeing, so we need to regroup, kind of thing. I
And
don't
that's
believe that
really
that's
good languaging, by the way. I want to compliment you on that languaging, because I think it's really hard, especially when it's someone who's artistic, you know. Yeah.
it it can be. Yeah, it can be. It's um because creative people oftentimes take it personally, right? Because creativity and a final product in the creative realm is very personal. If you write a song, it's a very personal thing. If you paint a picture, paint a painting,
Hmm.
very personal. Your soul is involved. And so that's another thing, right? That's another part of being detached. It's not taking things personally, right? What does the four agreements say? The very first
Oh, all
agreement
day.
is don't take
Don't take
personally.
things personally. And
Don't take
because here's
things
the thing, um, what other people do is never about you. I want to address Charles. Charles and I went to the same high school, Barrington High School, and I want to address his question. He says he's still struggling to give up in because as a recovering people pleaser, two areas of his life. One is how to overcome lust, and then one how can I do to let God be in charge of my finances. And so
Mm.
and I'm going to address the lust, and this is going to be so super easy for you. Okay. Charles, I want you to go back and think about some of the times that you've had trauma. Yeah. Okay. Because I can feel you, Charles. So you're on it. Now, I want you to know that everybody's got trauma. And every time you have sex with somebody, you get their traumas. That's what you're exchanging. You're taking on all their traumas. And so that will cut that in a second, would for me. I mean, you know, but the other thing is I would look at why, see, lust to me, that's a need for attention, in my opinion. And, but I would first, I'd look at what's the outcome of executing on that, on lust, which is taking on everybody else's trauma, whoever that person is that you slept with. But then the second thing is to really help you understand yourself is why are you seeking attention? Take it back to your childhood, which for you, it happened between ages 6 and 8 that you found that you weren't good enough. Okay. That's what I'm hearing in the subconscious mind. And so then you work on that, your root cause, and all of a sudden you're not seeking attention anymore. And to me, lust is a desire to be validated, to get attention. And the thing is, the only one who needs to validate you is God, right? And when you really surrender yourself to God, you don't need outside validation of any kind. And I'm going to tell you, it's nice to have outside validation. It's nice to have outside validation that is going to take you to the next level, but lust will never do that, as you know. So I'm not I'm not judging you at all. Um, in terms of letting God be in charge of your finances, I'm not sure that I would do that as a very 3D thing. I would let him be in charge of your abundance and how you bring it in and be guided by God um, to lead you to an abundant mindset, knowing that there's so much abundance for everybody. Like, like Michelle and I could technically serve the same client, but we know there's enough bodies to heal. So there's no competition. We don't have that competitive nature with each other. We may be competitive to the last version of ourselves, but never to one another. What would you like to add, Michelle, to that? If anything, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. No, I think for the lust part, the only thing I would add, and it kind of follows up with what you were saying, is that it's temporary. It's an instant gratification,
Hmm.
and so instant gratification isn't really gratifying.
Right. Mm.
It's for a moment, and um, typically it leads to disappointment and going lower than you were when you had the thought, right? And so um, it's much like it's like an addiction. Uh, we if we don't put ourselves in the places to allow ourselves to see the things that create this in our mind as best as possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we train ourselves that that's really not what it was about anyway. And I would do much like Jodi said, really go dig deep. And you may need, I probably would suggest working one on one with someone to get to the bottom of it and learn how to heal that. Um, as far as finances go, I'm a believer that we can and do manifest in every way in our lives. And so, as far as someone else, be it the universe or whatever, being in control of anything, I'm not a proponent of that only because I believe we co create and everything is a frequency.
Mm-hmm.
Money, which is what I'm believing you're talking about, finances is actually money, and those are the same thing I'm thinking that you're thinking. So money is an energy and it is a frequency. Finances, wealth, abundance of money, prosperity, it's a frequency. And so if you can tap into that frequency longer than I have time to talk here, but if you can tap into that frequency, then you can co-create all while being detached, right? I'm going to circle back around here. We have to be detached. And yeah, just what you said, abundance versus scarcity. Exactly. It's not about what I have or don't have. It's about I have access to all of it. I just need to be on that frequency and understand that it's all available to me. So perfect. I'm glad that that helped.
Yeah, and
Sometimes
the
we
abundance, I mean, the abundance mindset, I have a check on my wall for $450,000 a month, not a year, people, a month. And I fully intend to achieve that. And I know now exactly how it's manifesting. But I put the number out there because that's the number God gave me. And now I have the plan that's taking me there, right? And did I have the plan on day one? No, absolutely not. But I've created that plan, and I will say this: for me, it was never really about $450,000 a month, like just for me. It's so I can give back, so that every other people can have abundance, enough money for me and my husband, my family, and enough money to give back to those who can't do for themselves right now and need it, right? Without strings attached, not
yeah,
without living without attachment, not having attachment to whether or not they use it the way I think they should use it, right? Um,
yes.
and so, and some of it I will give money in the exact way I want it because I do
Mhm.
want to control, for instance, the water supply.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'm okay with that. And then there's other times I'm just going to give money and let them go. Um, so this has been really fun. You guys, last year I was off the air for several months, and the only one I really got on air with was Michelle. We are on every Tuesday, like clockwork now, and we've got more and more coming. And I have so much to share. Michelle has so much to share, and I'm so grateful that you came back. And I want to just say thank you. Thank you for coming back. I know I was gone for a while, so um, but we've got a lot of stuff we're going to share and help you guys move the needle. If you ever need to, consult with us, um, connect with Michelle, connect with me, or connect with someone that you think you're aligned to, like that, right? Like, but connect. the secret sauce in this world is being in community, because as a community, we can rise up to a higher level that's unrecognizable to what we've seen in our past. So, with that, thank you, Michelle. Anything you want to say before we end, or?
No, I'm complete. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. So, um, next week I have a new author, and the Housekeeper's Secret is the name of the book. I went to high school with her, and her name is Sandra Schenkenberg, and her book is entwined with my book, and we went to high school together, and we didn't know each other at the time, and it's eerily like I got chills all over my body how connected our books are, and yet we never knew one another until now. So God's got a plan. Don't ever second guess it, people. So join us next Tuesday, and follow us on Rumble, please. Go for self care, Susan Essentials on Rumble. I am taking a lot of my shows over there. So thank you, everybody. We're going to end the show, and let's just see if I know how to work my media. We